Pennsylvania, a land of rolling hills, quiet towns, and history carved deep into the soil. But if you scratch the surface of this state, you'll find something else buried here, something that refuses to stay in the past. This is a place where blood was spilled in battlefields that still echo with musket fire, where prisons built to break men's spirits now trap their souls forever, where asylums once filled with screams have fallen silent, yet the cries still carry through the empty halls. Locals whisper about roads that no one dares drive at night, where headlights flicker and twisted trees seem to lean closer the further you go. They warn of mansions where guests never feel alone, even when the rooms are empty. And they talk about hotels where you can check in but it's the dead that greet you at the door. Pennsylvania isn't just another state with ghost stories. It is one of the most haunted places in America. Every corner of it, from Philadelphia's crumbling penitentiaries, to the charred remains of a ghost town swallowed by fire, to the quiet countryside where soldiers of the Revolution and Civil War still march, carries echoes of a past that refuses to rest. We'll unlock 15 of the most terrifying places this state has to offer, each with its own secrets, each with its own ghosts. And by the time we're done, you may think twice before walking alone through Pennsylvania after dark. Welcome to the top 15 haunted places in Pennsylvania. But be warned, some doors once opened can never be closed again. Haunted place number 1, Eastern State Penitentiary, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania's first stop on our journey is a place that has been called the most haunted prison in America, a fortress of stone and iron that was designed not only to hold men, but to break their spirits. This is Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia. Built in 1829, it was revolutionary for its time, the very model of the modern prison system. But its purpose was isolation. Prisoners were locked alone in tiny cells, forced into silence, their only company the cold stone walls and their own thoughts. The warden believed that solitude would bring repentance. Instead, it drove many men to the edge of madness. Over the years, this prison held some of the most infamous criminals in American history. Al Capone himself served time here, claiming to hear voices in his cell, whispers that kept him awake at night. Guards reported inmates screaming through the darkness when no one else was around. And as the years went on, Eastern State earned a reputation not just as a prison but as a place where shadows seemed to move on their own. Visitors today describe seeing dark figures darting between the crumbling cell blocks, or peering at them through the rusted bars. They hear the whispers of men long dead, hushed voices carried down empty hallways. Some hear weeping, others the clanging of chains dragging across the floor. In cell block 12, footsteps echo even when no one is inside. In cell block 4, guests have felt unseen hands grip their shoulders. And in the old guard tower, there are reports of a shadowy man pacing, as if still watching over inmates who haven't drawn breath in 100 years. Paranormal investigators have called Eastern State one of the most active sites they've ever entered. Ghost hunters, mediums, even skeptics have left convinced that something remains here, something that refuses to leave. With its peeling paint, collapsing ceilings, and endless maze of corridors, it feels less like a ruin and more like a prison frozen in time where the inmates are still serving out their sentences, long after death. Some say that the building itself absorbed the pain of thousands of prisoners and that the walls still radiate that suffering. The question is, if you dared to step inside, would you only feel the cold of stone and dust, or would you feel the eyes of the condemned, watching, waiting, still desperate to be heard? But Eastern State is just the beginning. Pennsylvania's ghosts don't stay locked away. Some of them wander far beyond prison walls. Number 2, Gettysburg Battlefield, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Few places in America carry the weight of sorrow like Gettysburg. This quiet town in Pennsylvania was the site of one of the bloodiest battles of the Civil War, 3 days of unimaginable horror in July of 1863. More than 50,000 soldiers were killed, wounded, or went missing. The land itself drank so much blood that many believe it will never be free of the dead. Walk the fields today and you'll feel it immediately, the heaviness in the air, as if the earth itself is still mourning. Tourists, historians, and even seasoned soldiers have all reported the same chilling phenomena: phantom gunfire echoing across the fields, the distant roll of drums, the cries of men charging into battle. And when they look around, the fields are silent, empty, except for the ghosts of soldiers still fighting a war that ended more than 150 years ago. One of the most terrifying accounts comes from Devil's Den, a rocky outcrop where some of the fiercest fighting took place. Visitors there have seen the apparition of a barefoot soldier, disheveled and covered in dust. He appears long enough to point out directions, but when you turn to thank him, he vanishes into thin air. Cameras malfunction here, batteries drain, and strange orbs appear in photographs as if the fallen soldiers refuse to be forgotten. At Little Round Top, countless witnesses have heard the clash of steel, the screams of charging men, and the desperate shouts of officers giving commands. And at night, some say you can see the glowing forms of soldiers marching silently across the fields, their uniforms tattered, their faces pale and lifeless. Perhaps the most unnerving experiences, though, are not on the battlefield itself but in the homes and buildings that once served as field hospitals. In Gettysburg College, students have reported stumbling onto entire hospital scenes in the basement, surgeons sawing off limbs, nurses rushing to aid the dying only for the scene to disappear in an instant. The smell of blood and gunpowder lingers, but there's nothing there. Gettysburg is more than a historic site. It's a place where the past refuses to let go. Some believe the sheer trauma of those 3 days tore open something between the living and the dead. And if you ever walk the battlefield at night, you might hear the whispers of men who never went home, marching still, their boots sinking into the soil of Pennsylvania, waiting for orders that will never come. If the fields of Gettysburg can trap the spirits of thousands, then what about other places in Pennsylvania where the dying never even had a chance to step outside again? Number 3. Penhest State School and Hospital, Spring City, Pennsylvania. Penhest State School and Hospital in Spring City, Pennsylvania, isn't just haunted, it's one of the most chilling places in America. What began in 1908 as an institution for the mentally ill and disabled quickly spiraled into a nightmare of overcrowding, neglect, and abuse. For nearly 80 years, Penhest carried a reputation so dark that families whispered its name with shame, and patients suffered in silence. When it finally shut down in 1987, its horrors were exposed, but many believe the suffering never truly ended. Today, the sprawling ruins remain as eerie reminders of that torment. Hallways stretch endlessly into shadow, their walls crumbling, wheelchairs abandoned in corners, and broken beds left to rot. Yet the true terror doesn't come from the decay but from what still walks those halls. Visitors report disembodied screams echoing from locked rooms, doors slamming on their own, and shadowy figures darting in and out of doorways. In the infamous Quaker Building, investigators have seen a man in a hospital gown standing silently at the end of the corridor, only to watch in horror as he begins to move toward them. The underground tunnels are worse. Once used to connect buildings, they now trap an icy chill that grips your chest as soon as you step inside. Voices are heard crying out in pain, chains rattle against stone floors, and sharp bursts of laughter echo far too close to where you stand. Paranormal recordings have captured desperate whispers. "Help me, don't leave me, I'm still here." One of the most terrifying places on the grounds is the Mayflower Building. Here, people have been shoved by unseen hands, scratched across their backs, or pulled violently into rooms. Many leave with bruises they can't explain. The air feels suffocating, as though the agony of thousands of souls has soaked into every brick. Penhest may have closed decades ago, but its pain remains alive. Some say the spirits are restless, trapped in the echoes of their torment. Others believe the building itself feeds on despair, luring in anyone who dares to enter. Step into Penhest, and you don't just walk into an abandoned asylum, you walk straight into the memories of human suffering, memories that refuse to die. But if Penhest shows us the cries of the forgotten, the next place reveals what happens when the dead are determined to make themselves heard. Number 4. Centralia, Columbia County, Pennsylvania. Beneath the quiet hills of Columbia County lies a town that was quite literally swallowed by fire. Centralia was once a thriving mining community, home to thousands. But in 1962, a coal seam beneath the town caught fire. The blaze spread underground, and it has been burning ever since, a hellfire that will rage for centuries. The government declared the town uninhabitable, homes were demolished, streets torn apart, and most residents fled. Today, only a handful remain among crumbling foundations, broken roads, and a constant haze of toxic smoke that seeps from the ground. But Centralia is not just a ghost town in the literal sense. It's a place where the living swear the dead still wander. Locals and curious visitors describe seeing shadowy figures moving through the mist, shapes of men, sometimes children, appearing at the edge of vision before dissolving into the smoke. Some say they are the ghosts of miners killed in accidents long before the fire began, Others whisper that they're the restless souls trapped when the flames consumed the town itself. The old cemetery on the edge of town carries its own dark legend. Visitors claim to hear muffled screams coming from below, as though the earth itself is crying out. On still nights, people swear they can hear the faint tolling of church bells from long-destroyed steeples, or the echo of footsteps on streets that no longer exist. There are also reports of sudden drops in temperature, icy blasts of air cutting through the sulfurous heat, like the touch of something otherworldly pushing through from another side. Perhaps the most unsettling phenomenon comes from the abandoned stretch of Route 61, now nicknamed the Graffiti Highway. Here, strange lights have been seen glowing under the asphalt, and travelers report hearing disembodied voices calling from the smoke, urging them to follow deeper into the wasteland. Some who venture too far have returned shaken, swearing they felt hands reaching out from the fog, grasping, pulling, trying to drag them down. Centralia today is a husk of what it once was, a real-life ghost town scarred by endless fire. But for many, it is more than just a town destroyed by disaster. It is a cursed place where the flames may not only burn coal, but also hold onto the souls of those who never escaped. They say the fire will burn for another 200 years. But the real question is, what else burns down there with it? Number 5. Hillview Manor, Newcastle, Pennsylvania. Hillview Manor began its life in 1926 as the Lawrence County Home for the Aged, a place meant to care for the county's most vulnerable, the elderly, the sick, and the poor. But for many who passed through its doors, it became a place of last resort, and for some, their final resting place. Over the decades, countless lives ended within those walls. The building eventually expanded into a nursing home, and by the time it shut its doors in 2004, the death toll was staggering. More than 10,000 people are said to have died inside. Those numbers alone might explain why Hillview Manor has become one of Pennsylvania's most infamous haunts. Former staff, paranormal investigators, and even thrill-seeking visitors describe overwhelming feelings of dread the moment they step inside. The hallways stretch long and narrow, lined with rooms that still carry the stale smell of medicine and decay. Doors slam on their own, call lights flicker even though the electricity has been cut, and disembodied voices echo in the silence, as though patients are still calling for help that will never come. The most chilling accounts come from specific areas of the building. In the basement, shadowy figures are said to lurk just out of sight, pacing back and forth as if guarding something. In the old chapel, visitors have reported the sound of organ music playing softly, even though the instrument was removed years ago. And on the second floor, investigators frequently capture electronic voice phenomena, desperate whispers, groans, even someone crying out in pain. One of the most terrifying legends centers around a spirit known as the Angry Man. Witnesses claim he's a dark figure who appears suddenly, looming in the corners of rooms, his presence accompanied by a wave of rage so strong that grown adults have fled in terror. Another spirit said to roam the halls is Mary Virginia, a former patient who allegedly still appears to staff and visitors. She's been spotted sitting quietly in the hallways, dressed in a white gown, her expression distant and forlorn. Hillview Manor is not just haunted, it's saturated with decades of human suffering. For every story of a kind nurse or caretaker who once worked here, there are dozens more of despair, neglect, and lonely deaths. That kind of energy doesn't fade. It lingers, it builds. And in this place, it manifests in ways that continue to terrify anyone who dares to step inside. They say when you walk the halls of Hillview, you're never alone. Listen carefully and you'll hear them, the voices of those who checked in but never checked out. Number 6. Bolero Mansion, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Some places are said to be cursed. Others seem to wear that curse like a crown. In Philadelphia, tucked away in the historic Chestnut Hill neighborhood, stands a grand estate with a reputation so chilling it earned the title, the most haunted house in America. This is Bolero Mansion, a lavish home built in 1911, once filled with priceless antiques, rare artifacts, and elegant architecture. But for all its beauty, it hides a legacy of misfortune, death, and an infamous curse that has terrified generations. Bolero became truly notorious under the ownership of the Easby family. George Meade Easby, an eccentric collector and descendant of Civil War hero General George Meade, lived here for much of his life, and claimed his family's home was crawling with ghosts. But it wasn't just whispers and shadows that gave this place its reputation. It was death. Sudden, unexplained death. The most infamous legend is tied to what came to be known as the Blue Room Curse. In one particular chamber of the mansion, visitors reported overwhelming sensations of dread, dizziness, and even violent nausea. According to George Easby, several people who dared to spend time in that room died shortly afterward, often within days. No logical explanation was ever found. Some blamed it on the antique objects in the home, which Easby claimed carried spirits of their own. Others whispered that the house itself was alive, feeding on those who dared to enter its darkest corners. Beyond the curse of the Blue Room, countless ghostly encounters have been documented. Easby insisted that at least 8 spirits regularly appeared in the mansion, from a young child believed to be his long-dead brother, to a spectral woman who drifted silently across the hallways. Visitors reported hearing phantom footsteps echoing on the grand staircase, even when the house was empty. Doors opened and slammed violently without warning, and mirrors throughout the home seemed to ripple with movement, as if something on the other side was watching. Perhaps most disturbing of all was the infamous chair of death. This antique piece of furniture, part of Easby's vast collection, was said to kill anyone foolish enough to sit in it. Legend has it that no fewer than 3 individuals who dared to rest in the chair met untimely and violent ends, each within weeks of their visit to Bellarowie. Easby himself avoided it, treating the object with the kind of fear one might reserve for a loaded weapon. Paranormal investigators who entered the mansion spoke of overwhelming energy, describing it as one of the most active haunted sites in the country. Even skeptics admitted that there was something about Bellarowie, an atmosphere thick with unseen presence, where the line between the living and the dead felt dangerously thin. They say the Blue Room is still waiting for its next victim. If you ever find yourself wandering the streets of Chestnut Hill, and you feel drawn toward a grand, imposing house, don't step inside. Because once the curse of Bellarowie chooses you, there's no escaping it. Number 7. Allegheny County Jail, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Prisons are places built to confine men, but sometimes, what gets trapped inside never leaves. Deep in the heart of Pittsburgh, the Allegheny County Jail still looms with its foreboding Romanesque walls, built in the late 1800s. Its stone towers and barred windows look like something torn from a medieval fortress, but this isn't just architecture designed to keep prisoners locked away. According to those who've worked here, this jail still houses the restless spirits of the men who met their end inside its walls. Designed by architect H. Richardson, the jail opened in 1886 and quickly became known for its strict discipline and overcrowding. Executions were once carried out within its confines, and with them came stories of prisoners who went to the gallows cursing the guards, the judge, and the very building itself. It's said those curses linger, echoing through the corridors where men once marched to their deaths. Night watchmen have reported hearing the heavy drag of shackled footsteps pacing the corridors, long after the jail closed for the evening. Guards have spoken of icy winds sweeping through locked cell blocks, carrying with them low, guttural voices, muttering, pleading, sometimes screaming. On more than one occasion, visitors have sworn they heard the metallic rattle of cell doors slamming shut, only to find the entire block completely deserted. Perhaps the most chilling encounters center around the old execution area. Some staff refuse to enter alone. They claim the atmosphere changes instantly, the air grows heavy, oppressive, as if unseen eyes are watching. One former officer described the sensation of being shoved violently from behind, yet when he turned, the hallway was empty. Others say they've seen fleeting shadows of men dangling from invisible ropes, swaying silently in the air before vanishing. Even the guards themselves are said to linger here. A few visitors have claimed to see a uniformed figure making his rounds late at night, lantern in hand. But when approached, he dissolves into thin air. Was he still guarding the jail in death, forever bound to the building he once patrolled? The Allegheny County Jail may stand today as a historic landmark, but its reputation remains soaked in fear. Locals say the souls of the condemned were never freed. Instead, they remain locked inside the same cells where they suffered, their rage and despair echoing eternally against the cold stone walls. Number 8. Burn Brae Mansion, Forestburg, Pennsylvania. Hidden deep in the woods of Sullivan County sits Burn Brae Mansion, a place so picturesque that at first glance, it looks like something from a fairy tale. Built in the late 1800s, this sprawling Victorian estate was once the summer home of a wealthy family. But over the years, its beauty has been overshadowed by something far darker. Behind its ornate woodwork and elegant staircases, Whispers of the dead echo through the halls, and Burn Bray has earned its reputation as one of the most haunted mansions in Pennsylvania. Guests who've stayed overnight tell of objects moving on their own, rocking chairs creaking violently, doors slamming shut without warning, and chandeliers swaying when there's no draft. Some have even reported plates flying from the dining room shelves, crashing to the floor as if thrown by unseen hands. But it's not the restless movement of objects that makes this mansion truly terrifying. It's the children. Yes, Burn Bray is said to be haunted by child spirits, their laughter sometimes drifting through the upstairs halls in the dead of night. Imagine lying in bed when you suddenly hear the patter of small feet racing across the floorboards above you, even though no one is upstairs. Some guests have seen fleeting figures of children dressed in old-fashioned clothes darting around corners, their faces pale and expressionless. Others claim to have woken to the sound of a child humming at the foot of their bed, only to open their eyes to find the room completely empty. One of the most chilling encounters comes from the old attic space. Visitors describe the sound of a ball bouncing against the wooden floorboards, rhythmic, steady, echoing in the darkness. When they go to investigate, the attic is deserted but the ball keeps bouncing. A guest once left a toy ball at the top of the stairs as a test, only to wake in the night and find it placed neatly at the foot of their bed. Even the owners themselves admit the mansion has a life of its own. They've experienced strange cold spots that move as if following them, whispers calling their names, and the faint image of a woman gazing from the windows when no one is inside. Paranormal investigators have documented unexplained EVPs, electronic voices that sound like children crying for their parents. The atmosphere in Burn Bray Mansion is deceptive. By day, it's a charming bed and breakfast with Victorian charm. But once the sun sets, every creak, every whisper, every shadow feels alive, as if the house itself is watching, waiting. Some guests check into Burn Bray Mansion for the thrill, but not everyone makes it through the night. If you ever decide to stay, remember this: you may hear the laughter of children upstairs. The question is, will you have the courage to follow it? Number 9. The Devil's Road, Chadds Ford, Pennsylvania. On the outskirts of Chadds Ford runs a stretch of road so feared by locals, they refuse to drive it after dark. They call it the Devil's Road. Officially known as Cosset Road, this winding, narrow path is lined with massive, grotesquely twisted trees whose branches bend unnaturally toward the asphalt, as if reaching for anyone who dares to pass. The locals whisper that the trees themselves are cursed, warped not by nature, but by something far older and far darker. For decades, the Devil's Road has been at the center of terrifying legends. It is said that a wealthy family once lived deep in the woods, practicing unspeakable rituals. Stories claim they worshipped the devil, and even engaged in inbreeding to keep their bloodline pure. Their stone mansion, known to ghost hunters as the Cult House, supposedly still stands hidden from view, with high fences and walls designed to keep curious intruders out. Some who have trespassed swear they've seen hooded figures guarding the property, their torches burning in the night. Others say they've heard screams echoing through the forest, followed by silence so heavy it makes the air hard to breathe. But the road itself is no less terrifying. Drivers have reported glowing red eyes staring at them from the woods, only to vanish when headlights approach. Cars stall without warning, leaving passengers stranded in the suffocating darkness. And there are those who've claimed that something unseen followed them, heavy footsteps on the gravel, a presence pressing against the back of their necks, until they escaped the road entirely. One legend warns of a phenomenon known as the skull trees. Their bark has twisted in such a way that faces, skeletal hollow-eyed faces, seem to leer out from the wood. Locals believe the trees grew this way because of the bodies buried beneath them, sacrifices made during the rituals said to have taken place here. Even the police have long avoided patrolling this stretch of road after sundown. They dismiss the stories as superstition, but the number of strange accidents and unexplained deaths along the Devil's Road is too high to ignore. Cars veering off for no reason. Drivers found dead in vehicles without a mark on them. People disappearing altogether. The strangest reports, however, come from those who drive the road at midnight. Some say the trees lean in closer, bending toward the car as though the forest itself is alive, watching. Others describe seeing strange figures in their rearview mirror, faces that vanish the moment they turn around. The Devil's Road is not just a place you pass through. It's a place that latches onto you, following you home, waiting for the right moment to remind you, you were never alone out there. Number 10. the General Wayne Inn, Marion Station, Pennsylvania. The General Wayne Inn has stood since 1704, its stone walls bearing witness to more than 3 centuries of American history. But with that long history comes a darker legacy, one stained with violence, betrayal, and restless spirits that still refuse to leave. During the Revolutionary War, the inn served as a gathering point for soldiers, both British and American. Legend has it that men drank, schemed, and sometimes died within its rooms. According to local lore, several soldiers were murdered inside the inn, their bodies hidden away, their stories silenced. But silence never lasts. Visitors and staff have reported apparitions dressed in ragged military uniforms appearing suddenly in mirrors or standing in the shadows of the dining room. Some have claimed to feel the icy press of a hand on their shoulder, only to turn around and find no one there. The inn is perhaps most famous for the spirit of a Hessian soldier, said to wander the halls endlessly. His ghostly boots echo on the wooden floors late at night, heavy and deliberate, as though he's patrolling for enemies long gone. Others describe the faint sounds of marching outside, as if troops still gather on the property under cover of darkness. But it's not just soldiers. Guests have reported whispers in German and English when no one is around. Dishes rattle, chairs scrape across the floor, and glasses tip over on their own. Some psychics who have visited claim the energy here is overwhelming, a mix of rage, sorrow, and unfinished business. Even Benjamin Franklin himself is tied to the lore, with stories claiming his apparition has been seen in and around the inn, though skeptics wonder if it's simply another spirit taking his form. What makes the General Wayne Inn especially unsettling is how alive the activity feels. This isn't the quiet sadness of lingering souls, this is agitation, an unsettled crowd of the dead replaying battles and betrayals inside a place where history and violence collided. For many who've spent a night here, the sense of being watched is unbearable. Some guests have checked out early, unable to shake the feeling that dozens of eyes are on them, judging, waiting. Number 11. Hickory Run State Park, Carbon County, Pennsylvania. Deep in the Pocono Mountains lies Hickory Run State Park, a place known for its vast forests, icy boulder fields, and serene trails. But among hikers and locals, there's a story whispered with unease, the legend of the Lehigh Valley Witch. The tale goes back to the 1800s, when a woman who lived on the outskirts of what is now the park was accused of witchcraft. She was said to be a healer, a woman who knew the old ways, herbs, charms, and remedies. But when crops failed and livestock sickened, frightened townsfolk turned against her. In a fit of rage and superstition, they drove her from her home and, as some versions claim, left her to die deep in the woods. It is here, in the wilderness of Hickory Run, that her spirit is said to linger. Hikers have reported seeing a woman in ragged clothing watching from between the trees, her face pale, her eyes burning with fury. Some describe the overwhelming feeling of being pushed back when they try to enter certain areas of the forest, as though an unseen hand is warning them away. Others claim to hear a woman's voice calling softly in the distance, sometimes chanting, sometimes crying only for it to vanish the moment they stop to listen. The Boulder Field, one of the park's most famous landmarks, is particularly eerie after sundown. Visitors say the air grows unnaturally cold there, and cell phones or cameras often malfunction. Locals believe the witch cursed the land before she died, binding her spirit to the rocks themselves. A few hikers even insist they've seen her standing at the edge of the boulders at twilight, her shadow stretching unnaturally across the field. But perhaps the most terrifying accounts come from campers. Some wake in the middle of the night to find faint symbols drawn in the dirt around their tents, as though someone or something was circling them as they slept. One group claimed they returned to their campsite after a hike to find every item overturned, their fire pits scattered, and the word "leave" traced into the ash. They say the witch still roams Hickory Run, searching for those who wronged her or anyone unlucky enough to cross her path. And if you hear a woman's voice whisper your name in those woods, it's already too late. Number 12. Albright Mansion, Williamsport, Pennsylvania. The Albright Mansion stands tall in Williamsport, a relic of the Victorian age. On the outside it looks like a grand home from another era, but step inside and you will feel a weight in the air that is impossible to explain. This mansion is one of the most haunted places in Pennsylvania, and its legends have been told for more than a century. Built in the late 1800s, the Albright Mansion was once the pride of the town. Families held gatherings there, music filled the parlor, and laughter echoed through its halls. But beneath the beauty of its architecture, strange tragedies struck its residents. Some say a child died in one of the upper bedrooms. Others whisper about a woman who wasted away in sorrow, pacing the floors until her final breath. Today, visitors to the mansion report hearing soft footsteps in empty rooms, as if someone is still wandering those same hallways, never able to rest. On quiet nights, the faint sound of a piano drifts through the air, playing music no one alive remembers. Locals swear it is the ghostly echo of a tune once played during parties more than a century ago. Those who have worked inside the house say the shadows there move on their own. You turn a corner and for just a moment, a figure seems to be standing at the end of the hallway. Then it vanishes. Guests have claimed to feel a sudden drop in temperature, so sharp it takes their breath away, while others insist invisible hands have brushed against their arms. But the most unsettling accounts come from the attic. Several people have reported climbing the narrow staircase, only to hear faint whispers right behind them, too close to ignore. When they turn, the space is empty. Some refuse to go up there at all, saying they feel they are being watched the moment they approach the steps. The Albright Mansion is no simple haunted house. It is a place where the past still speaks. A mansion that was once alive with music and joy, but now holds echoes of grief, footsteps of the unseen, and a piano that plays for an audience of ghosts. Number 13. Bolton Mansion, Levittown, Pennsylvania. The Bolton Mansion sits quietly in Levittown, yet its walls carry the weight of centuries. Built in the 1600s, it is one of the oldest homes in Bucks County, a place deeply tied to Revolutionary history. Soldiers, families, and generations of locals passed through its doors, but not all of them left. Many believe that the spirits of the past still linger within its rooms, restless and unwilling to let go. Visitors often describe the house as deceptively calm in the daylight. Sunlight filters across its weathered walls, and for a moment it feels like nothing more than a historic landmark. But when night falls, the air inside becomes heavy, charged with a presence that cannot be ignored. The mansion's long past of hardship and war seems to echo back into the present, leaving behind shadows that refuse to fade. Apparitions are frequently reported inside the mansion. Guests have claimed to see figures dressed in colonial attire, walking across the rooms only to vanish before their eyes. One of the most common sightings is that of a Revolutionary War soldier, said to appear near the stairwell. Witnesses describe him as stern and silent, his uniform tattered, his gaze locked as though still guarding the house centuries after his death. Children's voices have also been heard when the mansion is empty. Volunteers restoring the property have spoken of laughter floating down from the second floor, followed by the sound of small footsteps running across the wooden boards. Yet no children are ever found inside. Some believe they are the ghosts of families who once lived here, trapped in a time that will never release them. Even more chilling are the cold spots that seem to appear without warning. One moment the room is warm, the next your breath hangs in the air as if winter has swept in. Paranormal investigators have captured strange audio within the house, recordings of voices whispering commands and prayers in tones too faint for the ear, but unmistakable when replayed. Those who walk the grounds at night have claimed to see lantern lights moving across the fields, bobbing gently as if carried by invisible hands. The glow disappears when approached, leaving only darkness and the unnerving silence of a place that still remembers war. The Bolton Mansion is more than a historic relic. It is a reminder of sacrifice, of soldiers who never returned home, and of families bound to a place by tragedy and time. Its walls hold secrets older than the town itself, and those who enter often leave with the feeling that they were never truly alone. But history does not rest easily in Pennsylvania. Where one house holds the whispers of soldiers, the next carries legends far darker, where even the land itself seems cursed. Number 14. Bedford Springs Hotel, Bedford, Pennsylvania. In the quiet town of Bedford stands a place once known for its beauty, luxury, and healing springs. The Bedford Springs Hotel has stood since the early 1800s, drawing politicians, generals, and even presidents to its grand halls. Its mineral waters were believed to cure the sick, and its elegant ballrooms once echoed with music and laughter. But beneath the glamour, this hotel holds a darker history, one that left behind restless souls who never checked out. Guests and staff alike tell stories that chill the blood. In the hallways, footsteps are often heard pacing back and forth, though no one can ever be found. Late at night, voices echo through the empty corridors, conversations too faint to make out, as if spirits of past guests still linger, trapped in their eternal stay. Some claim these murmurs are followed by sudden cold winds sweeping through locked rooms, as though the dead are passing by unseen. One of the most terrifying accounts is that of the ghostly figures that appear in the hotel's mirrors. Visitors have reported seeing reflections of people dressed in 19th century attire, only to turn around and find the room empty. Others have seen faces looking back at them, pale and expressionless, lingering for only a moment before fading away. The Grand Ballroom, once alive with music, is said to be a hotspot for these sightings. Guests entering at night have described hearing faint strains of a piano, accompanied by the rustle of gowns sweeping across the floor, though the room remains deserted. The springs themselves carry a sinister legend. Workers and paranormal investigators have reported seeing a shadowy figure standing near the mineral pools. Some say it is the spirit of a young servant girl who drowned there long ago, her cries for help still echoing around the stone walls. Those who approach the springs at night often leave shaken, claiming the water ripples as if disturbed by invisible hands. Former employees tell of doors slamming shut with violent force, of lights flickering despite updated wiring, and of whispers calling their names in the dead of night. Some even refuse to work the overnight shifts after feeling a presence following them down the hall, a suffocating weight that pressed against their chest until they fled the building. The Bedford Springs Hotel stands as a blend of elegance and unease, where history's grandeur collides with the paranormal. Guests may arrive for luxury and relaxation, but many leave with stories they cannot explain. For within those walls, the past has not died. It lingers, watching, waiting, reminding all who enter that beauty often hides darkness. But as unnerving as a haunted hotel may be, there is another place in Pennsylvania where the spirits do not simply whisper, they confront. Where history bleeds into legend, and the dead walk openly among the living. Number 15. Fort Mifflin, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. On the banks of the Delaware River, where the waters meet the city of Philadelphia, stands one of the most haunted military sites in America, Fort Mifflin. Built in 1771 by the British, it became a battlefield during the Revolutionary War. Here, soldiers bled into the earth, prisoners languished in darkness, and death was a constant companion. More than 2 centuries later, their screams have not been silenced. Visitors often report hearing phantom gunfire, the heavy echo of boots on stone floors, and the sound of men shouting in desperation as if the battle never ended. The air is heavy with a sense of sorrow, as though the walls themselves have absorbed the suffering of all who perished there. But perhaps the most chilling encounter of all is the voice of the infamous Screaming Lady. The legend tells of Elizabeth Pratt, a woman who lived near the fort in the 18th century. She is said to have suffered a devastating loss, her daughter's death, and was overcome with grief. Her screams of anguish carried across the fort until the day she herself died. To this day, her piercing wails echo through the stone passageways, loud enough to chill even the bravest of visitors. Soldiers once stationed there reported hearing her cries in the dead of night, the sound so real they searched the grounds only to find nothing. Tourists and ghost hunters claim the sound is unlike anything human, a cry so sharp and sorrowful it seems to pierce straight into the soul. Then there are the shadow figures. Men in ragged uniforms are seen marching along the ramparts, rifles on their shoulders, disappearing into thin air as soon as they are approached. Inside the casemates, dark, damp prison cells carved into the stone, whispers slither through the air. Prisoners were once chained there in misery, and their voices are said to remain, muttering, begging, sometimes cursing the living. One room, known as the Black Hole, is said to be the most oppressive of all. Used as a solitary confinement cell, it is so small and suffocating that even stepping inside makes visitors panic. Those who dare to enter claim to feel unseen hands touching them, a choking pressure on their neck, and in some cases, the overwhelming urge to flee before their sanity slips away. The fort is still open to the public, and paranormal investigators continue to flock to it, capturing EVP recordings of ghostly voices, unexplained lights, and the unforgettable cries of the Screaming Lady. Even skeptics walk away uneasy, unable to shake the feeling that something watches from the shadows. Fort Mifflin is more than a historic landmark, it is a graveyard of memories, a place where the line between life and death is blurred. Every brick, every tunnel, every echo tells a story of anguish, war, and restless souls that refuse to be forgotten. 15 haunted places, each more chilling than the last. Yet among them, Fort Mifflin stands as a reminder that history never truly dies. It lingers, crying out, demanding to be heard. And those who listen may never forget what they've heard. The stories have been told. From prisons echoing with the cries of the condemned, to mansions where unseen footsteps follow your every move, to graveyards where shadows refuse to rest, Pennsylvania is not just a state of history, but a state of hauntings. These 15 places are more than just whispers in the dark. They are warnings carved into walls, carried on the wind, and written in the screams of those who never found peace. Maybe you felt a shiver when I spoke of Eastern State Penitentiary, where the shadows of inmates pace endlessly through the halls. Maybe your skin crawled at the thought of Centralia, where fire smolders beneath your feet, as if the earth itself is alive with wrath. Or maybe it was the cries of the screaming lady at Fort Mifflin that will keep you awake tonight, waiting for a sound in the silence, a sound you pray will never come. But here's the question I leave you with. Do you believe these are only stories? Or have you too felt it, that cold breath at the back of your neck when no one is there, that sudden pressure in the air that makes your heart race, that voice that whispers when you are all alone? Because the truth is, these haunted places are not just in Pennsylvania. They are everywhere. And sometimes you don't have to visit them. Sometimes they find you. So tonight, when the lights go out, when the house grows quiet and the night wraps around you like a heavy shroud, listen carefully. If you hear footsteps in the hall, if you hear a voice calling your name, remember this. Not every ghost waits for you in a prison or a mansion or an abandoned town. Some follow you home. If you survived this journey into the darkest corners of Pennsylvania, then I dare you, join me again. Subscribe, share this tale, and let others know what lies hidden in the shadows of our world. But a word of warning, each time you return, the stories grow darker. Each time, the shadows creep closer. And one day you might find yourself standing in the very halls we spoke of tonight. If that day comes, pray that the voices you hear are still among the living. Until next time, keep your lights low, keep your courage close, and remember, Pennsylvania never sleeps quietly.